The deep space around Sector 9 was silent. No stars moved. No ships passed. It was a lonely, empty part of the galaxy. At least that was what every map said. For years, no empire had claimed this region. No colonies existed here. No danger was recorded in the last 1,000 cycles. Because of this, an alien fleet entered the sector with full confidence. There were 20 ships in the fleet, sleek, dark vessels belonging to the Vornak Empire, known for their aggressive expansion and powerful military. Their commander, Varkesh, stood tall on the bridge of the lead cruiser, his 4 eyes scanning the still black space outside. To him, this mission was supposed to be simple. A calm trip. A safe passage. "This sector is empty," Varkesh said in a firm voice. His officers nodded. The fleet continued forward without fear. But space does not always follow maps. And silence does not always mean safety. Only 20 minutes after entering the sector, the sensors on the lead cruiser flickered. A soft beep echoed across the bridge. At first, the crew thought it was just a system glitch. Then the beep turned into a loud alarm. Beep, beep, beep. A red warning icon appeared on every screen at once. Varkesh turned sharply. "What is that?" The sensor officer swallowed hard. "Commander, I do not know. The signal is strange. Very strong, very close." Another officer added, "It feels human." The bridge went silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The Vornak Empire had met many races over the centuries. Some peaceful, some violent, some terrifying, but humans were different. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were stubborn. Humans survived wars that should have ended them. And humans built machines that even old empires feared. But humans rarely traveled this far. They should not be here. "Show me the signal again," Varkesh ordered. The officer tried to refresh the display. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. "Commander," the officer whispered, "the scan is failing. Something is blocking it." The bridge lights dimmed for a moment. A hush fell across the entire fleet. Every ship received the same message at the same time. Unidentified object approaching. Size, massive. The words glowed in red. The crew stared, their hearts pounding. On the outer screens, the darkness of space began to shift, almost like a giant shadow sliding across the stars. A shape was forming. Slow. Silent. Huge. Varkesh felt a cold pressure in his chest. He had seen enemy dreadnoughts. He had fought massive warships. But this shadow, this presence, felt different. It felt heavier, older, and somehow more alive. "What do we know about the object?" he asked. "Nothing, Commander. It is blocking all scans. We cannot see inside it. We cannot measure it." Varkesh narrowed his eyes. "Impossible." But the officer shook his head. "Not impossible, sir. Just human." A whisper spread through the crew. Humans? Out here? They had fought many species, many enemies, but they had never faced humans on open ground. Only stories. Only rumors. Rumors that humans built ships with armor so thick even plasma torpedoes bounced off. Rumors that humans used strange energy shields that no one could decode. Rumors that humans fought with a level of rage and unity no alien empire could match. Stories. Legends. Nothing more. Or so Varkesh had believed. The shadow grew larger, blocking the glow of several distant stars. The cruiser's glass panels darkened automatically as if protecting the crew from a bright sun, even though the object had not yet revealed any light. "Is it a station?" one officer asked. "No," another whispered. "It's moving. Slowly, but directly toward us." The bridge shook as the signal strength increased. Then the radar made a loud clicking noise, something it only did when it found a complete lock on a target. Everyone turned to the main screen. The object was now outlined. The computer projected its size. And the crew froze. The outline was sharp, angular, and terrifyingly familiar. The computer spoke in a cold, emotionless voice. "Target identified, human warship." The room went dead silent. No one breathed. No one blinked. They had heard of these ships. Titan-class. Super destroyers. The pride of human engineering. But the one in the projection. This one was even bigger. "This cannot be real," Varkesh murmured. "Humans do not build ships this far from their colonies." Another officer whispered, trembling. "Commander, this ship is not supposed to exist." The warship finally came into full view. Dark metal, layer upon layer of armor plates glowing with blue energy. The hull stretched longer than 3 cities. It looked like a sleeping monster, ancient and unstoppable. Then its engines hummed. A deep vibration passed through the alien fleet, like the growl of something awakening. Every alien on board felt it. Fear. Real fear. "Commander," the officer said softly, "what should we do?" Varkesh could not answer. He did not know if they should run. He did not know if they should talk. He did not even know if they would survive the next minute. Because one truth now filled every mind in the fleet. Humans were here. And they were watching. The bridge of the Vornak flagship remained quiet. Too quiet. Even the low hum of the engines felt softer, as if the entire ship feared being heard by the giant human warship drifting toward them. Commander Varkesh stood still, staring at the screen. His 4 eyes were fixed on the massive human vessel slowly emerging from the darkness. The metal giant did not rush. It did not hide. It moved with confidence, like something that already knew it was in control. The alien officers felt a strange pressure, like a great weight pressing on their chests. It wasn't a weapon. It was presence. Human presence. "Commander," the communication officer whispered, "we are receiving a signal." Every head turned. "A message?" Varkesh asked. "Yes, but it is not words. It is only a tone." A deep, low sound vibrated through the speakers. It was slow, calm, controlled, and somehow more terrifying than a battle alarm. This was not a warning. It was not a threat. It was a simple statement. "We see you." Varkesh tried to hide his fear. His species hated showing weakness, especially in front of junior officers. But even he could not stop himself from feeling a cold shiver run along his spine. "Try scanning again," he ordered. His sensor officer swallowed. "We have already tried, Commander." "Do it again," Varkesh said louder. The officer obeyed, and watched every line of data crash instantly. The screen blinked red. Scan failed. Unknown energy shield detected. Varkesh clicked his claws together anxiously. What kind of shield blocks every scan? "Humankind," the officer whispered. Suddenly, without warning, the human warship changed course. It turned slightly, pointing its front toward the Vornak fleet. Its engines glowed brighter, sending ripples of energy across space. Every alien officer tensed. "Commander," the defense officer shouted. "The human ship is adjusting weapons." But then he paused. The readings were strange. "No, it is not targeting us," he said slowly. "It is scanning us." The alien stared at his screen. A massive blue wave washed over the fleet, soft, gentle, yet powerful enough to shake entire ships. The wave passed through metal, shields, armor, everything. All ships vibrated. All crew felt it. "What was that?" someone gasped. A quiet voice answered from the back of the bridge. "Human technology." Another officer added, "I heard they use something called a deep penetration quantum scan. No empire can block it." Varkesh turned sharply. "Then they know everything about us. Our numbers, our weapons, our energy levels." The officer nodded. "They know everything." The commander's jaw tightened. Across space, the human ship began to glow with faint white lights. Small, circular ports opened along its hull. Tiny metal objects floated out, hundreds of them, then thousands. The aliens thought they were missiles. But the sensor officer quickly corrected them. "No, these are drones." "Attack drones?" another officer asked. "No," the sensor officer whispered. "These drones are not armed." The bridge fell silent again. Why would humans send unarmed drones? The drones formed a grid pattern. Perfect lines. Perfect rows. Perfect spacing. No alien empire had ever shown such flawless control. It felt unnatural. It felt intelligent. It felt human. The drones moved around the Vornak ships, silent, smooth, careful. They scanned every angle, every engine, every weapon port, every hull crack. One officer stepped back in fear. "They are mapping us." "Yes," Varkesh said softly, "and they are doing it without asking permission." Just then the deep humming sound stopped. A cold, steady silence filled the air. Then a voice arrived. A human voice. It, come. Heavy with authority. Unidentified fleet. Every alien on every ship froze. "You have entered human-protected space." The words were simple. The tone was calm. But the message felt like a blade resting on their necks. Varkesh forced himself to stand tall. "This is Commander Varkesh of the Vornak Empire," he said loudly. "We did not know this sector belongs to humans." A pause followed. The human voice replied, "Now you know." The aliens looked at each other nervously. Varkesh tried again. "We come with peaceful intentions." Another long silence. Then the human voice said, "Peaceful visitors do not hide weapons." The Vornak officers panicked. How does it know? Are our weapons exposed? We didn't lock onto them. Varkesh raised a hand for silence. He spoke carefully. We were only passing through. The human voice answered without emotion. This region is restricted. Restricted? Varkesh asked. For what reason? More silence. A long, uncomfortable silence. Then the human ship dimmed its lights. The drones paused midair. The engines fell quiet. The human voice returned, this time lower, darker, and colder. We guard something here. Varkesh felt every cell in his body tense. What? He whispered. The voice replied. Something ancient. The bridge crew exchanged frightened looks. Ancient? Human ruins? A weapon? A secret base? But the voice continued. Something dangerous. Now the aliens understood. Humans were not here to expand territory. Humans were not here to attack. Humans were protecting something. And whatever they were guarding was worse than anything the Vornak Empire had ever faced. Varkesh felt the fear spreading through his officers. He straightened his back. What happens now? He asked. The human voice became quiet. Then it said words that froze every heart in the fleet. Turn back while you still can. The drones began returning to their ports. The warship dimmed its lights again. The massive machine hovered silently, waiting. Watching. Daring the aliens to make one wrong move. Varkesh swallowed. He did not know if his fleet could escape. He did not know if humans would allow them to live. He only knew one thing. The next decision would decide the future of his entire empire. The bridge of the Vornak flagship felt colder than before. No one spoke. No one dared to even breathe loudly. The last words from the human warship repeated silently in every mind. Turn back while you still can. Commander Varkesh stood straight, but inside he felt a rising storm of fear and confusion. Humans were not known to give warnings. Humans in most stories acted only when they had no choice. If they were telling the Vornak fleet to leave, it meant something truly terrible was waiting in this region. Varkesh looked at the massive human vessel on the screen. It floated silently like a dark mountain in space, ancient, powerful, and perfectly still. No weapons were pointed at the Vornak fleet, but that almost made the situation worse. Because humans didn't need to point weapons. They only needed to decide to fire. A soft alarm beeped. Commander, the communication officer whispered, the human ship is sending images. Images? That was unusual. Very unusual. Put them on the main screen, Varkesh ordered. The screen flickered. Static flashed. Then an image appeared. Not a ship. Not a planet. Not a star. But a hole. A dark, swirling hole in space, like a wound torn open in the universe itself. Purple lightning streaked across its edges. A strange fog drifted from the center, glowing faintly. A tear. A rip. A broken piece of reality. The crew gasped. What is that? One officer stuttered. The next image answered the question. The picture showed a ship, a Vornak ship, being pulled into the hole. The ship was twisting, stretching, breaking apart like it was made of liquid metal. The crew inside looked frozen, not dead, not alive, but trapped in time. Another image appeared. Then another. Then dozens. Ships from different empires. Creatures unrecognizable. Fragments of destroyed technology. Bodies frozen mid-motion. Time loops snapping like broken wires. Each image got worse. Each image showed something impossible. Varkesh felt the fear crawling up his spine. What is this place? The communication officer whispered. The humans call it the tier. The room fell silent. Explain, Varkesh demanded. Before the officer could reply, the human voice returned. The tier is a fracture in spacetime. It leads to a region outside normal physics. Anything that enters does not return. The voice remained calm, but there was a cold weight behind every word. We are the only ones who can stop it from growing. Varkesh felt his legs weaken. He had thought humans were dangerous because of their weapons. He had been wrong. Humans were dangerous because of what they were protecting the galaxy from. The human voice continued. We stand guard so others don't suffer the same fate. Varkesh clenched his jaw. So this entire sector is off limits? Yes, the voice said. Not because it belongs to humans, but because it belongs to danger. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed energy readings from the tier. The numbers rose higher, higher, then doubled. Varkesh frowned. It is growing? Yes, the human voice replied. Faster than before. An officer gasped. If it grows too large, It will consume everything, the human voice finished. The entire bridge went silent. Consume everything? Every planet? Every star? Entire empires? This was no ordinary threat. This was extinction. Varkesh's hands trembled. He raised his voice, trying to sound strong. Why did you warn us? You could have destroyed us without speaking. The human ship dimmed its lights. Then the voice returned, softer this time. Because even humans believe in mercy. The Vornak officers exchanged uneasy looks. Mercy was not a word they associated with humans. But, the voice added, colder now, mercy has limits. The crew stiffened. If you approach the tier, the voice continued, we will stop you by any means necessary. Another officer whispered, Commander, we cannot fight this. He was right. No one could fight a Titan-class human warship, much less one guarding something so dangerous. Varkesh's mind raced. If they returned to the Vornak Empire with this information, their leaders would demand action. They would want to study the tier, weaponize it, or control it. The Vornak Empire was ambitious, and ambitious empires were reckless. If his leaders learned about the tier, they might start a war humanity could not ignore. Varkesh understood something in that moment. Leaving was not just about saving his fleet. It was about saving his entire species from their own greed. He breathed out slowly. He opened a channel to the human ship. We understand, Varkesh said. We will leave this region. Every alien officer stared at him with wide eyes. Retreat? Without a fight? Without honor? But something in Varkesh's expression made them stay quiet. The human ship responded after a long pause. Wise choice, Commander. The drones began returning to their ports. The massive warship drifted backward, giving the Vornak fleet space to turn. Then the human voice said one final thing. Do not return. For your own sake. The communication ended. The human lights dimmed. The warship drifted back into the darkness, watching them, guarding the tier, and silently daring them to challenge fate again. Varkesh gave the order. Turn the fleet around. Engines ignited. Ships rotated slowly. But just as they prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. Something none of them were ready for. There. Move. A ripple shot across space. The purple lightning brightened. The fog inside twisted like a living creature. The Vornak fleet shook violently. Alarm screamed. Commander, an officer shouted, the tier is expanding, fast. Varkesh's blood ran cold. The human ship also reacted. Its lights burst to life. Its engines roared. Its weapons activated. For the first time, the human warship prepared for battle. And the thing it aimed at was not the Vornak fleet. It was the tier itself. The tier pulsed again. A shockwave of purple energy spread outward like a growing heartbeat, shaking every ship in the Vornak fleet. Warning alarms flashed red across every control panel. Officers stumbled. Panels sparked. Lights flickered. Commander Varkesh held the rail to keep himself steady. What is happening? He shouted. The sensor officer stared in horror at the readings. Commander, the tier is expanding at a speed we have never recorded before. Expanding? Varkesh repeated. Yes, and its energy level is rising. Fast. The tier glowed brighter, no longer a dark wound in space, but a violent storm of twisting purple arcs and swirling fog. The strange light reflected off the hulls of the alien ships, painting them in colors that didn't belong in this universe. Across the darkness, the human Titan-class warship came alive. Bright blue energy lines lit up along its metallic armor. Its engines thrummed like a sleeping giant waking up. Massive armored plates shifted into place with heavy, metallic clicks. The ship tilted slightly, pointing its entire front toward the growing tier. It looked like a warrior raising a shield against a monster. Varkesh had never seen a machine move with such purpose. Commander, an officer whispered, they are preparing to fight it. Fight, the tier? Varkesh murmured, scarcely believing the idea. Humans are insane, another muttered. Or brave, someone else said softly. Suddenly, a beam of energy shot out from the human ship, bright, white, and unbelievably powerful. It slammed directly into the tier. The space around them shuddered. The tier pushed back with a pulse of dark lightning, and the beam flickered but did not stop. The human ship didn't move, didn't shake, didn't falter. It took the full force of the tier's energy and answered with its own. The Vornak bridge fell silent as they watched the impossible battle. The defense officer's voice trembled. I think they're trying to stabilize it. Varkesh narrowed his eyes. How? We have no technology that could affect something like this. The officer looked at him. Because this is not normal technology, Commander. It's human. The beam suddenly widened, shifting from white to a deep blue. A second layer of energy wrapped around it like a spiraling snake. This was not a weapon, not fully. It looked more like a net, a restraint, a barrier. The tier roared, a violent burst of purple arcs shooting outward. One arc struck a distant Vornak frigate. The ship shook violently, spinning out of formation. Stabilize the formation. Varkesh barked. Yes, Commander. The frigate regained control, but the edges of its hull were glowing, melting, like the tier was rewriting its material. Commander, the science officer cried, the tier's energy is warping space-time around it. If we get closer we will be torn apart just like the images we saw. Varkesh clenched his jaw. We're leaving. Immediately. But before he could give the full order, a bright flash erupted from the tier. The human beam cracked. The tier surged outward like a massive tidal wave. The human ship pushed harder, engines screaming as energy surged through its hull. But the tier pushed harder. Then, the human voice returned, broadcasting not just to Varkesh's ship, but to every ship in the Vornak fleet. All vessels, retreat to minimum safe distance. The voice was strained. Still calm. But different now. It was the voice of someone fighting a battle they might not survive. Varkesh felt his chest tighten. He opened a channel. This is your fight. Not ours. But if we go, will you survive alone? A moment passed. The human voice answered quietly. We have no choice but to try. The human ship's hull began glowing red from heat. Metal plates bent inward. Parts of its armor cracked. Still, the ship did not retreat. Still, it did not run. Still, it fought. The tier pulsed again, sending a second shockwave. This one was larger, faster, and more violent. Several smaller drones were ripped from space, shredded instantly. The Vornak fleet shook with the force. Commander, the defense officer yelled. If we don't leave now, we will be caught in the collapse. Varkesh hesitated. It wasn't that he wanted to fight. It wasn't that he thought they could help. It was the way the human ship stayed there, alone, while an entire fleet watched. It was courage. Raw, impossible courage. And Varkesh felt something unfamiliar. Respect. He slammed his fist onto the command panel. Send a message to the human ship. The communication officer hesitated. What should I say? Varkesh took a deep breath. Tell them, the Vornak fleet will hold formation and not flee. The officer stared. But Commander. Tell them, Varkesh insisted, we will witness this battle. If humans fall today, we will record their final stand. A deep silence filled the bridge. No one had ever heard a Vornak commander speak like that. The message was sent. Then, shockingly, the human ship responded. The voice was softer this time. Thank you, Commander Varkesh. But do not stay too close. If we fail, you must survive to warn others. Varkesh felt a twist in his chest. Humans were risking everything. For everyone. Understood, Varkesh said quietly. The fleet pulled back, but only a short distance. Close enough to watch. Far enough to survive. The tier pulsed again, growing brighter. Cracks of energy ripped across space like cracks in glass. And then, the human ship released its final weapon. A massive sphere of white energy formed at its front. Spinning, glowing, roaring like a miniature star. Varkesh's officers gasped. What is that? A superreactor? No, something beyond that. Then the human voice spoke once more. Initiating containment burst. The sphere shot forward. A blazing sun racing toward the tier. The tier screamed. A sound felt, not heard. Space bent. Light twisted. Stars flickered. Then, impact. A blinding flash swallowed the battlefield. Every ship shook. Every officer shielded their eyes. Every system overloaded. And in the center of it all, the human warship vanished into the light. Not destroyed. Not broken. Just gone. Varkesh stared in shock. What happened to them? No one answered. Because no one knew. The blinding light slowly faded. The shaking stopped. The alarms fell silent. And when the Vornak fleet finally regained clear vision of the battlefield, the center of space was empty. No tear. No lightning. No distortion. No ancient wound. And no human warship. There was only a calm, cold darkness, so normal, so peaceful, that it felt unreal after the chaos that had filled the region only seconds before. Commander Varkesh stared at the screen in silent shock. His hands trembled slightly, but he kept them behind his back so the crew could not see. His officers looked confused, frightened, and speechless. The science officer was the first to speak. "Commander, the tier, it's gone." The words echoed across the entire bridge. Gone. Completely. As if it had never existed. Varkesh stepped forward slowly, his 4 eyes scanning the readings. The sensors showed nothing unusual. Energy levels were returning to normal. Space-time distortions were dropping to 0. Everything looked safe. Too safe. "Where is the human ship?" Varkesh asked quietly. The communication officer shook his head. "Commander, there is no signal. No heat trace. No energy signature. Nothing." "They cannot just vanish," the defense officer whispered. But that was exactly what had happened. The massive Titan-class warship that had stood between the galaxy and destruction was simply gone. Varkesh clenched his jaw. He felt something tight in his chest, something he had never felt during war, not even during their darkest battles. Respect. And something worse. Grief. He had not known these humans. He had spoken only a few words to them. Yet seeing the empty space where their ship once stood felt like a blow. The science officer tried to restore normal systems. "Commander, I think the human vessel triggered some kind of self-collapse mechanism. A containment burst strong enough to neutralize the tier." Varkesh nodded slowly. "And they destroyed themselves in the process." The crew looked down. No one argued. No one questioned. Because deep inside, every alien on that ship knew the truth. The humans stayed behind so everyone else could survive. The Vornak fleet drifted quietly, engines humming softly as they stabilized. Officers whispered among themselves, voices filled with shock. "Humans saved us. They sacrificed an entire Titan-class ship just to stop the tier. I didn't know humans were capable of something like that. They warned us to leave, but stayed to fight alone." The bridge lights flickered again, then brightened fully as systems stabilized. Varkesh took a slow breath and straightened his posture. "We cannot stay here," he said. "But we cannot leave without honoring them." The crew looked at him silently, waiting. Varkesh raised a hand toward the main display. "Bring up the last known coordinates of the human ship." The screen zoomed in on the section of space where the Titan had stood minutes earlier. Now it was nothing but quiet, empty stars. Varkesh bowed his head slightly. A gesture rare in Vornak culture. A gesture of respect. "This region is no longer just human space," he said softly. "This is sacred ground." The officers said nothing, but many lowered their heads as well. A long silence filled the bridge. Then an alert beeped suddenly. "Commander!" the sensor officer cried out. There's something." Varkesh's heart jumped. "What? Energy signature? Human beacon?" "No, a transmission. Weak. Very weak." The officer adjusted the controls. "It's on a human distress frequency." The entire bridge held its breath. Static crackled. Then, a voice. "Weak. Broken. But alive. This is Titan-class vessel. Halcyon. Emergency. Containment successful. Crew, unresponsive, systems critical. Require assistance." Varkesh nearly stepped forward in shock. "They're alive?" someone gasped. The communication officer shook his head. I can't tell. The voice is distorted. The ship's location is unclear." The transmission continued. "Drifting, engine core offline, failing." The crew erupted into whispers. "They survived. How? They should have been destroyed." Varkesh held up his hand for silence. "Trace the signal," he ordered. The sensor officer worked rapidly, fingers tapping the controls. "It's difficult, there's interference, but I think I can." He froze. "Commander, the human ship is inside the tier's collapse zone." Varkesh narrowed his eyes. "How deep?" The officer swallowed. "Very deep." The bridge fell silent again. The tier was gone, but the space around its former location was unstable. A ship trapped inside that zone was effectively lost. Half dead. Half alive. Drifting between reality and something else. The distress signal continued, growing weaker and weaker. Oxygen, falling. Life support, failing. "Anyone here?" "Us." Varkesh looked at his officers. Fear. Uncertainty. And then he spoke words no one expected to hear from a Vornak commander. "Prepare a rescue operation." Every officer turned sharply. "Commander? A rescue? For humans?" "But the zone is unstable. We could be trapped too." Varkesh raised his voice. "Those humans saved our entire fleet. His tone was deeper, stronger. "It is our turn to return the honor." Silence fell. Then one by one, officers nodded. "Yes, Commander. We will assist them. Preparing rescue ships. Charging stabilized shields." Varkesh opened a channel toward the fading human signal. "This is Commander Varkesh of the Vornak Empire," he said firmly. "We hear you. Hold on. We are coming." The bridge filled with motion as the fleet prepared for the most dangerous mission any of them had ever attempted. Saving humans. Saving their former enemies. Saving the ones who saved everyone. And as the Vornak ships moved closer to the unstable zone where the human warship had vanished, Varkesh whispered to himself, "May the stars guide us. May we be worthy of their sacrifice." The Vornak fleet moved toward the collapsed zone of the tier like shadows drifting through a dead sea. Every ship was silent, every officer focused, every sensor active. The air inside the bridge felt thick, almost heavy, as if the whole ship itself was holding its breath. Commander Varkesh stood firm at the center, his eyes locked on the swirling distortion that still shimmered faintly in the distance. The tier was gone, yes, but the wound it left behind was not fully healed. The space ahead still twisted slightly, like a scar that refused to close. "Status?" Varkesh asked quietly. The science officer swallowed. "Commander, readings are unstable. Gravity pockets everywhere. Time dilation is fluctuating. But the human signal is still there." The communication officer nodded. "Very weak but consistent." Varkesh took a slow breath. "Then we continue." The Vornak fleet pressed forward. The closer they came, the darker the region felt. Stars vanished behind strange ripples. Light bent unnaturally. The engines groaned as if resisting the environment. Entering the collapse zone, the navigation officer warned. A low vibration passed through the ship, like a distant roar. The crew tensed. But they did not stop. Not this time. Not after what the humans had done for them. Then suddenly, "Commander." Visual on the human vessel. Every head turned toward the main display. Through the warping darkness, a huge shadow drifted slowly, its hull cracked and burned. The once powerful Titan-class warship, the Halcyon, now floated like a wounded giant, struggling to stay alive. Lights flickered across its surface. Fire patches still glowed in broken sections. Parts of the ship were missing entirely. But it was still there. Still holding on. Still fighting to exist. The sensor officer whispered, How is it still intact?" Varkesh answered softly, "Because they refused to die." The communication officer leaned forward. "Commander, I'm detecting micro-life signs. Very faint. Possibly survivors." Varkesh's voice dropped into a deep, steady tone. "Begin the rescue." He opened a direct channel. "Human vessel Halcyon, this is Commander Varkesh. We are approaching. Stay with us. You are not alone." Static replied. Then a weak voice came through. "Vornak? We read you." The crew exchanged stunned looks. The humans were alive. Barely, but alive. Hull breach, oxygen, failing. Most systems, offline. "Please, hurry." Varkesh nodded sharply. "Navigation, move us closer. Slowly. Engineering, reinforce our shields. Rescue teams, stand by for boarding." The Vornak ship moved carefully toward the crippled Titan. The closer they got, the worse the damage looked. Huge metal plates ripped open. Wires hung like exposed veins. Debris floated around the ship like broken bones. The science officer shivered. "If they survive this, they are stronger than any species I've known." Varkesh stared at the wounded vessel. "They faced the tier alone," he said quietly. "That is strength we must honor." As they aligned their ship with the Halcyon's largest remaining airlock, gravity distortions hit them. The hull groaned. Lights flickered. Tools vibrated across consoles. "Commander, the collapse zone is destabilizing," the officer shouted. But Varkesh remained steady. "We are not leaving without them. Push forward." The Vornak ship locked onto the human airlock with a loud metallic thud. Boarding successful. Varkesh turned toward his rescue teams. "Go. Bring them back." The Vornak soldiers, armored and ready, entered the dark, dying Titan. Inside the human warship, the corridors were silent, cold, filled with smoke and drifting flakes of burnt metal. Emergency lights flickered weakly, glowing a faint red. One Vornak rescuer whispered, "This place, it feels like a tomb." Another answered, "No, not a tomb. A battlefield." They moved carefully through the ship, scanning for survivors. Bodies floated gently in zero gravity. Some burned, some frozen, some still strapped to their seats. The rescuers lowered their heads in respect. They fought until the end, one said softly. The life signs, the medic shouted. They rushed toward a sealed emergency chamber. The door was jammed, half broken. The team worked together, pulling it open with their claws and tools. Inside, humans, 6 of them, barely conscious, barely breathing, but alive. One of them, an officer with a burned uniform, tried to sit up when he saw the Vornak soldiers. He coughed, voice weak. You came back? The Vornak medic lowered himself respectfully. Yes, he said simply. You saved us. Now we save you. Tears formed in the human officer's eyes. Thank you. The rescuers quickly stabilized each human, attaching oxygen packs and life support patches. Commander, the rescue leader reported through his comm, we have survivors. 6 confirmed. None in stable condition. Varkesh closed his eyes for a moment, relief washing over him. Return immediately. The zone is collapsing. The escape. As the rescue teams carried the humans back toward the airlock, the entire warship began to shake violently. Gravity spike. Space distortion increasing. The collapse zone is destabilizing. The Halcyon's metal hull twisted with terrifying groans. Panels exploded. Lights died. Matter warped. The Vornak rescuers hurried, dragging the unconscious humans. Move. Move. They reached the airlock just as a massive rupture blasted through the human ship's corridor. The rescue team jumped inside the Vornak vessel. Seal the hatch. Hatch sealed. Break away. Break away now. The Vornak ship disengaged from the collapsing Titan. The Halcyon began folding into itself, pulled by the unstable gravity around it. And then, in a final flash of light, the ancient human Titan was gone. Varkesh watched its disappearance in silence, a deep sadness in his chest. But he did not look away, because the humans lived, and their sacrifice would not be forgotten. The final moment. On the medical deck, the human officer slowly opened his eyes. Varkesh stood beside him. You are safe now, the commander said. The officer nodded weakly. Did we stop the tear? Varkesh met his gaze with respect. You did more than that. You saved everyone. The human let out a shaky breath. Good, that's good. He closed his eyes again, this time in peace. Varkesh stood tall. The galaxy will remember the humans of the Halcyon, he said softly. The ones who stood alone, and turned death itself aside. Outside the viewport, space finally grew calm and clear. No tear. No monster. No darkness. Only stars. And hope.